Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The $1.9 trillion bill that our colleagues, our Democratic colleagues, passed seems designed to make far more people more dependent on government and less self-reliant than they would otherwise be. For example, the bill eliminates the requirement to earn income, which is to say to work, in order to receive the increased and fully refundable child tax credit. The bill also famously provides extra unemployment benefits such that in some periods of time, a majority of people not working are getting paid more by the government to not work than they would get paid if they went to work. So I want to explore how these huge new incentives not to work are harmful to especially low and middle income families. Dr. Rashidi, as I know you're aware, I think in the 1990s, we made some reforms on a bipartisan basis to a number of welfare programs that included a work requirement, or at least a requirement that a recipient attempt to find work as a condition of getting the benefit. So let me ask you this. Did those work requirement rules reduce poverty, or did they increase poverty in the United States?
Thank you for the question. So the work requirements that you're talking about were part of welfare reform in the late 1990s. And yes, the evidence shows that poverty reduced among children in particular dramatically after those reforms were put in place. And it was due to those reforms as well as to expanded earned income tax credit, which also rewarded work. So when you combined the work requirements and conditioning assistance on employment, along with a wage supplement through the earned income tax credit, poverty, as I mentioned in my testimony, for children declined by half over the next 25 years.
So the very policies that dramatically reduced poverty, especially among children, those policies were watered down in this last bill. Let me ask you about this. Does it stand to reason in your mind that if the government sets up an unemployment insurance benefit program that will pay someone more to stay at home than they can earn if they go to work, does it stand to reason that some people are going to make the decision to stay home?
Yes, definitely. And I think that might be appropriate at certain times. Certainly in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic, that was possible, but it will definitely slow the economic recovery. And I think at the point we're at now, that should be of a big concern.
Right. And how about the effect it's going to have on those very workers? I mean, if the government is telling someone, we'll pay you more not to work than to work, it's hard to fault the person for saying, okay, maximizing income for my family is pretty important. But what's the long-term effect if people make a rational decision and stay out of the workforce for an extended period of time because of these government incentives?
Oh, there's a large literature in the economics literature that shows that the longer people are out of the labor market, the much harder it is to re-enter the labor market. They lose skills. I mentioned skill atrophy. They lose not only hard skills that they can't keep up, but they also lose soft skills. So the literature is very clear that the longer people stay out, it becomes much harder for them in the long run and hurts them in the long run.
And then, Mr. Cooper, you know, the thing that's so painful about this school closure situation is how polarized it is, right? Wealthy families can afford to go to private schools, and private schools are open. They have been open. But the public schools, and if you're a low or middle income person, you don't have the luxury of sending your kids to a private school, they tend to be closed. Who do you think is responsible for the fact that public schools are by and large still not fully open?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And also thank you for raising this issue because so many right now are ignoring it. And I know parents appreciate you bringing it to this hearing. You know, right behind me in this wall, right on the other side, are a group of neighbor kids and a tutor that we all collectively hired in order to help them handle the day-to-day of online learning. We're fortunate to have the means to do that. But even with that being said, it's still a terrible environment for learning. The inequality gap that is growing is not simply between the haves and the have-nots. It's between the same communities of people who choose the private option down the street because it's the only one open. Look at the standardized tests next year. What's going to be the difference between a child in Florida who's been in school 5 days a week all year and the child in Virginia who has had maybe 15 days of in-person instruction? What's the equitable solution for those students? We have a lot of work to do on this, and money's not going to solve the problem. It's just a matter of will and for unions to frankly get out of the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.